the way people take care of their homes and their yards is really on another level in the South. And I think that translates to the interiors as well.
Welcome to the On the Wall podcast, where we engage in conversations with artists, designers, enthusiasts, and visionaries who shape the world of interiors. Today's guest is Kevin O'Gara, the founder and creative director of Kevin Francis Design. We learn about his new Regency style, the design of the South, and an event he's participating in called To Live and Design, in partnership with Modern Luxury Interiors Southeast and the Atlanta Decorative Arts Center. If you enjoy these conversations, please subscribe, leave a rating, leave a review, and share this podcast with a friend. Joining me now is interior designer Kevin O'Gara. Kevin, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So you are from Atlanta, but you're in Los Angeles today, is that right?
Yes, I am.
What's going on in LA?
I have the privilege of dog sitting for my friend out here, which is always a treat. And it's been a great way for me to get to know LA and kind of scope it out because I'm planning on moving next year.
Okay, cool. I was from there, so I could probably tell you some things. But so no projects happening out there, just doing a favor for a friend.
No, not right now, but I'm excited to get to know the design scene better because it's definitely got a different landscape than in the Southeast. And I already know a couple great people out here that have given me the impression that it has a very tight-knit and friendly community in the design scene.
Okay, cool. And is this your first time visiting or?
No, I've been
okay, so you've been out several times, but
yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. So it's interesting that you bring up the design scene there, because that was actually one of the questions I wanted to get into it with you. So maybe I should let you kind of tell your story. So you're Atlanta based, right?
Yes. And I grew up in Atlanta too.
Yeah. Well, I read that, is it 5 generations?
Yes.
Deep? So tell me a little bit about that, your family history in the area.
Yeah. Actually, on both sides of my family, I'm a 5th generation Atlantan, which is wild. And
that is crazy. So how many years? Do you know what year that goes back to exactly? 5 generations.
I'm not exactly sure. I just know. I know my great grandparents on both sides were there, and just even hearing about it from my grandparents, it was always a treat to hear about how Atlanta was when they were growing up. And it really was just a small town back then. But my grandmother always had really funny anecdotes about growing up in Atlanta. And for instance, Coca-Cola, which is a Atlanta company, they had a delivery truck that would go straight to residential homes. So Coca-Cola would drop off at my grandmother's house when she was growing up, which is
how crazy,
which is funny to think about. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, because one of the things I found fascinating when I was doing a little bit of research is that you at 16 years old started like your own design blog. Is that right?
Yes.
So
and I was actually 15.
You're 15. Because, a lot of people don't maybe get the design bug until they maybe start living in their own homes or, that kind of thing. You at a very young age were already had the design, the design's desire in you. Was that something that was just in the home, or was it just something that you were, drawn to, like distinct from your family, or?
I think a combination. I definitely was among my siblings the most design focused, but we have a very strong creative gene in the family. My older sister, who's now in med school, funnily enough, is a fine artist and went to school for fine art and did a double major in fine art and biology. And my little sister danced ballet from 5 years old all the way through college. So we definitely got a lot of creativity from our parents. They don't
Okay.
do, their jobs aren't creative, but they both are very creative people and always interested in art, and took us to a lot of museums. And I definitely get a lot of my eye from my mom. She's always been a sounding board and has always kind of been my sidekick on design projects. And I've worked with her on her own house and previous homes so many
Even
times over
now,
the
like
years.
even now,
Mhm.
she's you're consulting with her, and
Not as much anymore. I think when I was really first getting to design and starting to do my own projects, she was always a sounding board because I really, I hadn't built up my confidence in my
Mhm.
eye and my perspective. And so over time, that's definitely my confidence as a designer has grown a lot. So I don't need as much reassurance when I'm taking a design risk, but she was definitely a really important and amazing part of my design journey because I was able to really have her as a sounding board for so many years.
that's really special.
On the Wall is brought to you by Milton and King, your trusted partner for luxury crafted wall coverings. Milton and King's trade program is designed to make your creative process seamless, offering exclusive trade-only benefits such as complimentary samples, early access to new collections, and professional pricing structured to enhance your business success. To assist with your projects, you'll have the flexibility to create your own custom swatchbook, tailored specifically to your design needs. With dedicated customer support every step of the way, our trade program is here to elevate your design vision and simplify your journey from inspiration to installation. Ready to join a partner who understands your craft? Visit miltonandking.com to apply for your trade account today. Milton and King, your vision, our craftsmanship.
So you must have also had, aside from design, did you have like a love of writing? Because what makes somebody who's 15, 16 go, not only do I love design, but I want to blog about it?
Well, I was on Pinterest and Tumblr before I started my blog, which is really what exposed me to those really early design bloggers and websites where people were taking their own photos, doing, graphic design, writing all in one place that
Mm-hmm.
was all their own. And for many years, I was on these sites like Pinterest where I was curating people's content and other people's images. And I've always had a love for photography. And
Okay.
so it seemed like the natural next step was I've been curating other people's images. I'd love to try to take my own and make a space where I can share my own original projects and then see where that takes me.
Now that blog was called Thou Swell, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And you've since sold that.
Yes. I had the opportunity to sell it in 2021. And it was at a time where my design studio was starting to build some momentum. And so I had kind of two brands I was managing and two websites, and I wanted to bring everything under one roof. But I had, half a decade of content on this website that was hard for me to manage continuously. And so I took most of my really original projects and original content and migrated it over to my studio website. And that has its own blog now called The Francis Files, but then sold Thou Swell to a media company.
Now you attended Cornell University, I read,
Mm-hmm.
in New York. And this sort of gets into the question I actually originally wanted to ask was, you're visiting in LA and you're checking out the design landscape there and learning about the community there. And then that you were mentioning how it's different than
Mm-hmm.
Atlanta and the South. And I was just wondering, like, were you aware of those differences kind of like living and growing up in Atlanta, or did it take going to Cornell and going away or going to other
Mm-hmm.
places to actually see where you were? Because I know a lot of times when you grow up in a spot, you don't necessarily appreciate everything around you because it's just what you're familiar
Oh,
with and what you
absolutely.
already know.
Yeah.
So did you sort of understand what the design style was there in the South, in Atlanta, before you actually were able to get away, or did you not see that until you traveled a bit?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think in several aspects, absolutely. I think I always knew that the South had more traditional design, and that there's an appreciation for really classic and traditional design styles. But the piece that I took for granted when I went to other places was the care in which people take care of their homes in the South definitely has its own culture and its own level, its own standards. I think, you know, there's always the challenge of different landscapes and climates. We're super blessed in Atlanta to have a really verdant landscape, super easy to grow, lots of plants. And the way people take care of their homes and their yards is really on another level in the South. And I think that translates to the interiors as well. People
Mm.
have perhaps uh, more of a there's more of a tradition of taking care of your home, but also there's a lot more kind of passed down heirlooms and pieces that people hold on
Antiques, like?
to. Yeah. And the antiques are something that I grew up with and which I'm really grateful for. It gave me um, this understanding of classic proportions and uh, gave me a really great introduction to classic design motifs and a lot of things that really stand the test of time.
Can you expand on
Um,
that a little bit? The classic proportions.
yeah, I think one thing that I've noticed and been grateful for is understanding some of those universal design principles that carry through any sort of style, interiors, architecture, even to landscaping, and cl- really classic antiques, especially anything neoclassical, is pulling from that language of design principles that the Greeks and Romans studied and really got right. Those Palladian proportions. And having, not necessarily having some sort of like specific formula, but having a sense of proportion from looking at so many things that carried those principles over time, just having like a sense of that feels right translates not only to buying traditional pieces that are newly made, but even contemporary and modern pieces that don't have all the stylization of a neoclassical piece, but still you have to get the proportions right, no matter what
Mm.
style you're going after. And obviously, I'm all about breaking the rules and knowing when to, you know, something needs tension and pushing things beyond. But but overall, that understanding of proportions is something that I feel like I got from growing up around antiques, and I'm super grateful for that.
Yeah. The design style that that is in your biography, you call it New Regency.
Yeah.
Um, Explain a little bit about what that style, what we see when what we
Mm-hmm.
notice, or what you notice with that style. How is it recognized? What are the hallmarks of that style?
Yeah, I really wanted to come up with a term to describe my style because it's such a mixture of things. And so when I created the term New Regency style, there was a couple things I wanted to capture. I wanted to capture the classic proportions, like I just talked about, that are the foundation of my design language. And Regency both speaks to the neoclassical Regency period of design in Europe, but also Hollywood Regency, which takes classic proportions and exaggerates them a little bit for dramatic effect and has a little bit more of that glamorous edge, which I've always loved. And then New Regency really speaks to my love of combining new and old and the importance of contrast in my design work. I love putting something old next to something new. And that's kind of always my go-to when I'm pulling a space together. I also tend to work in a lighter, airier, like either I'm working in a kind of light and airy color palette, or it's really, really moody, but always with kind of restrained color palette. And so those things kind of speak to this fresh color palette that is always sort of an energizing force in my design work and always brings it into the present. So there's lots of different aspects to the phrase, but I think what it captures for me is a classic mix of new and old, with a fresh contemporary color palette.
Now, the language that you're speaking when it comes to design, is this something that you had prior to going to school for it? Was this sort of already the language of kind of understanding these concepts, the history, the different kind of schools of thought? Did you have this or prior, or did you sort of gain the language, kind of getting a more formal design education?
I really find that when I think about running my design blog and all the years I spent looking at looking through other designers' projects, reading shelter magazines, analyzing projects to share on my blog, whether I was like breaking down the room to help my readers shop the look, or I was, writing about the project in my own words. All of that was such an amazing education for me. And I think probably the most important thing I did for my design education. And I'll be honest, the program I went into at Cornell it's called Design and Environmental Analysis. And it's really more of a commercial design focus and design thinking, which is a kind of a strategic role that's more so in corporate environments. So I went into the program not really understanding that there wasn't going to be as much of a residential focus. And I ended up transferring to the hotel school at Cornell, which is their hospitality and business program. And the business courses to me were the most helpful in terms of applying the learning to my life and my work. But I left Cornell after junior year because I was being pulled in a lot of directions with my work. I was going home pretty frequently to work on my projects there. And also, Cornell was a really challenging environment, just geographically and culturally. And so I really credit my design education with the research that I did running my blog and also the internships I've done over the years, because I think it's really hard to match the learning that you do hands-on when you're doing something as involved and specific as design work. And whether it's the design work itself or running a studio, I don't think any school has really been able to keep up with how studios are run. And it's kind of a black box that I know a lot of podcasts and newer publications have been able to open up a little bit in how designers run their studios. But I think really, typically, it's been like a really hard thing for people to figure out unless they work under someone.
You mean like in terms of like running the actual business of design?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Well, it's interesting that you say that because, as I was reading on your website, you must have been 21 years old when you started your rug line. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
So this is called the Labyrinth Collection, maze-inspired area rugs. So what I find interesting is that it's a testament to you and your sort of entrepreneurial spirit. Whereas, a lot of young people will say, "Oh, I want to do design," and then they'll go do their education. And then once they're done with their education, they go, "Okay, let me get into the workforce. Let me go work for a design firm or start my business and stuff." You were, from doing your blog at 15 and 16 to in the middle of your education saying, "I'm going to start my own line of designer rugs," which I guess explains a lot why you said you had to go home and work on various projects, because you were already, from what I can tell, a working designer. How is it that someone goes, "I'm going to start a line of designer rugs"?
Introducing Benchmade Modern. Tailored sofas crafted just for you, delivered in as little as 4 weeks. Create a custom piece that perfectly reflects your style. Choose from our collection of designs from timeless to modern. Customize the size, then personalize with your ideal fabric, cushion, and leg style. Discover your dream sofa today.
Yeah. I'm so grateful for having started my blog because it led to so many unexpected doors opening. And the rug collection was one of those. And it started with a rug showroom in Atlanta reaching out about doing a collaboration together. And it really led me into the rug making process. And that's something that I really fell in love with and have since continued working directly with suppliers in India. But the first collection that I designed was based on these aerial photos I saw of garden hedge labyrinths. And then I started looking at different mazes around the world, finding these really amazing patterns for inspiration. And then I translated the mazes to the rug construction using like a carved design with 2 materials. And that collection was the starting point of getting into product design, which really is the bulk of my design work now. And it's really amazing and exciting to me to design pieces that go into people's homes and that they use in all these different settings in different ways. But it really was kind of a happy accident that I got into the rug business specifically, because it wasn't necessarily something I was focused on or even imagined doing myself.
When I was reading about it, it was pretty intense. The hand knotting and hand tufting and all that kind of stuff. I was reading that some of the expert artisans can do up to 1,000 knots a day, and I can't imagine what actually goes into it. But when you said that you were looking at the mazes, were you basically translating that onto the rugs, like literally, like turn by turn, you know what I mean? Or was it more of like it's an inspired, an inspired thing where you go, I like
Mm,
kind of this pattern, and so I'm
mm.
going to translate that onto this rug? Or were you literally taking that exact layout of these mazes and putting it on the rug?
Yeah, a couple of them are close or more closely matching real
Okay.
mazes that I found. A couple
Wow.
of them are more loosely based. And of course, to get the patterns to either repeat or scale, because depending on the rug, some of them repeat and some of them scale up, and the maze just gets, or the pattern just gets bigger. So uh, a couple of things were adjusted, but
Mm-hmm.
a couple of them were definitely more closely based on real mazes.
So what programs are you working in to design these things? What are you using?
So I use Photoshop for a lot of my rug design work
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of times it's almost like I'm doing a collage.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of how I have approached the design work because I'm also a painter and collagist outside of more as just a, a creative outlet that I love personally.
Hmm.
And a lot of times when I've done the rug designs, it's kind of been kind of a digital collage, and I can take a pretty rough concept and hand it over to my team in India, and they have their own programs for the design that they always translate it through. So even if I have a rough concept, I can hand it over to them, and they can show me what their CAD looks like, and then I can go back and adjust, and we'll go back and forth like that.
Is that the only product line you're
I
doing,
have
or?
expanded to into wallpaper. I have
Okay.
original wallpaper, and I launched two custom sofa lines last year,
Wow.
and those are really new, and they're a new upholstery is a new category for me, but they follow the model that I have with the rugs, which is made to order. I don't hold
Okay.
inventory,
Yeah.
and um, they kind of have their own niches that they fill. I've got striped upholstery, which is all performance fabrics, very classic stripes, and then floral upholstery, which is um, really embracing my love for chintz, like classic chintz patterns and
Mm-hmm.
printed florals and woven florals. So those are new and they're really fun. And I'm excited to add chairs and ottomans and benches.
Sorry, did you find any like challenges translating into upholstery and that kind of stuff, or did it just feel like a natural evolution into what you're already doing?
Um, it felt like a natural evolution, and I'm working with uh, workrooms that I've worked with through my interior design work. So I'm, you know, familiar with the process um, of how they work, and also it's almost it's almost simpler than the rugs in some ways because I'm handing it off to a workroom that requires a lot less oversight than my rug suppliers.
Hmm.
Um, and there's a lot less construction details that, the rugs, especially because I do custom work with them too, the material, the dyes, and the process itself does require some oversight. And it's difficult working, um, you know, across an ocean from the workshops in India, translating the ideas and making sure they've got the control samples, and stuff always goes. unexpected things always pop up there. With the upholstery, it's all American workrooms, so it's a little closer to home, a little bit more reliable, and there's a level of familiarity there.
So it sounds like it's overall a bit easier for you to manage and handle.
A little bit. It's definitely a high ticket item, and so there's pressure there to get it right because you can't return it. But but the fabrics that I've sourced are really beautiful, and it was just fun to get into another textile realm because I really love fabrics, and it's my favorite part of design work.
Now, are all this product line and the rugs and stuff, is that all available direct to you, or are you going through certain outlets or providers, or how is that? How does that
Everything work? Is under the Kevin Francis Design umbrella. So my rugs, wallpaper, are on my studio website, Kevin Francis Design. The floral upholstery is under Marigold Furniture, and the striped upholstery is under Striped Sofa Co. Okay. So those have their own little worlds, and then everything else, which falls under my New Regency umbrella, is directly under Kevin Francis. And then I'm also working on a line of neutral rugs with really premium materials like cashmere and alpaca, and that will be under a new brand that'll be an extension of my rugs line, because it just happened to be that my rugs ended up very colorful. And I love color, and I love working with color, but I know that there's a huge market for neutrals. And so I wanted to do neutrals, but do them differently with these materials, so they'll live under their own brand.
Yeah, I saw that you were using New Zealand wool for some of them as well. Are there differences in terms of how that absorbs dyes, and in terms of using alpaca and some of these other sources?
The differences in the wool is something that I learned in the process. It turns out that there are many different types of wool, and they do take dyes differently because they have a different base color, whether it's a more pure white or not. They're going to obviously take the dyes much differently. So New Zealand wool, besides having like a longer thread, it also has a more pure, brighter base color, so it takes color much better, which have been important to my rugs.
What are your thoughts on the use of wallpaper? I know you said you now have your own line. Are there any sort of I don't know, I guess sort of go-to styles, designs, or even substrates that kind of excite you in what you bring to a space?
I am a huge wallpaper lover. I mean, my friends have made fun of me for using so much wallpaper, because it's kind of a go-to for me, especially since oftentimes I'm addressing spaces without changing the architecture. And wallpaper is such an amazing way to add character to a room without having to renovate it. And I definitely lean towards the either a really classic pattern like a gingham that's going to look like a fabric, or I'm going floral and doing something that either has a lot of leaves, or leaves and flowers, birds and flowers. All of that I think, create such a transportive feel to a room, and it's always going to be a go-to for me.
Yeah, that's great. I want to pivot a little bit here because you have an event coming up. It's involving the well, people commonly refer to it as ADAC, but that's the Atlanta Decorative Arts Center down in Atlanta.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
can you tell us a little bit? What is this event? I know there's lots of designers featured, but it has something to do with design and food and all that kind of stuff. Can you tell us a little bit about the event
Yeah.
itself and what your involvement is?
Yeah. It's a really fun event that they do every year where they bring together a group of designers, and each designer creates basically a dining room vignette that both is, photographed and shared as a mini design project, and then it's enjoyed during the dinner that they serve for a night where they, bring in a chef, do a full tasting menu, and everyone is seated at a beautiful table that's, been fully realized, the table and its surrounding, um, in its own little vignette.
And so, is it? I didn't realize it was every year. So it's every year, so is it put on behalf of ADAC, or what is sort
It's
of like the, I don't know. I guess what is the reason for the event? Is it just an
mhm.
appreciation of art and culture and that kind of thing, or what's sort of the kind of, I guess,
Yeah,
guiding purpose of it?
it is. The event is put on by ADAC and Modern Luxury Interiors Southeast, and it really is a celebration of design and food,
Mm-hmm.
specifically in Atlanta, with the resources at the design center, which the designers pull from for their vignettes at the event, and then the chef that is brought in to do the dinner. The event benefits Meals on Wheels Atlanta, which combats senior hunger in Atlanta. So a portion of the proceeds will go to them.
Okay, well that's great. So it's a collaboration between Modern Luxury, ADAC, and then it benefits that charity. And so I want to say it must be around 10 designers that I've read about. I think around that number, that are all designing. Is there anything you can tell us about what you're doing, or is it kind of a big reveal, big surprise?
Yeah, absolutely. So um, the theme for my table is Regency Aviary. And
Okay.
really, it started with the Milton King wallpaper, which um, has birds and flowers and trees and a silver background. So it's not a really traditional chinoiserie. It's a little bit more tropical.
Mm-hmm.
And my table kind of pulls from many different styles and places, but it is going to feel a little bit like you're in like a tropical greenhouse,
Mm.
and there's going to be layers of blue and pink um, and definitely a mix of my my new and old that I always do.
Awesome. Can't wait to see it. Um, okay, so how does it? Can anybody go to this, or is it just for certain?
Yes, it
How does
is.
someone attend?
Uh, Tickets are available for Modern Luxury, and so anyone can get a ticket and go to the dinner.
Okay, is there is what is it, do they just type in modern luxury into Google, or is there a certain website they have to go to?
If they look up Live and Design Atlanta, they will
Mm-hmm.
they can actually go through ADAC's website to a link to buy the tickets, and it'll also be
Okay.
available on ADAC's events page, which has all the upcoming design events of the next month.
Okay, cool. And is that going to be covered on socials, and will people get to see what everyone's kind of put together?
Yes. Yeah, it'll be on socials and in the next issue of Modern Luxury Interiors Southeast.
Okay, awesome. There's just one final question that I wanted to ask you, and that's pretty much a question that I ask everybody that comes on the podcast. And so, like, I know, you sound like you're pretty much creative all the time. You're always creating, whether it's the rugs, whether it's the wallpaper, you're designing spaces, which I know can sometimes, I don't know if you ever have creative burnout or anything like that.
Yeah.
But the final question is always like, what is it that you do to stay creative?
Mm-hmm.
To kind of keep those juices flowing and stay fresh? What is it that you do to kind of stay creative like that?
I find now more than ever that getting off social media and being outside, whether I'm just walking the dogs or I'm taking a hike or I'm laying by the pool, having time away from, the overstimulation of all the images that I see online, really gives me time to refresh my brain and give it space to think creatively.
That's a great answer. I've heard similar things from other designers where sometimes they just need to unplug and shut it all off, and that's when because otherwise you're just constantly being inundated with everything in the world that's out there all the time. So that's a great answer. Is there anything on the horizon or anything upcoming? Where do you prefer that people find you? Are you heavy on Instagram, or you prefer your website? What's the best way to kind of get in touch, see what's going on?
You can follow me at KF O'Gara on Instagram, and that's where I share everything from all the projects and product design and brands that I'm working on. And so that's probably the best place to keep up with all the spokes of my design wheel.
Awesome. I'll definitely link that in the show notes below this episode. So check that, click that, give Kevin a follow and check out what he's doing and everything he's got going on. Kevin, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.